Hello, everybody. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. I have a great show today. You know, we reach out to so many leaders in their respective fields. And when we look at online reviews and we look at what people are doing in the business that they're in, when you see somebody that has 78 five-star reviews online, I mean, that caught our attention. And we reached out to this gentleman who's the founder and CEO, of course, of Second City Livery Service. And he's got a great business. He runs the #1 Chicago livery service that's out there. I mean, he specializes and focuses in the Chicagoland area, of course. But when we saw his reviews, I mean, I said to the team, hey, let's reach out to Chris Arvanitis and let's get him on the show because he's doing something right. And there's so much to learn from an entrepreneur that has so many five-star reviews. So many people come back to him time and time again. Everybody around Chicagoland knows Chris and knows what he does, knows all of his cars that are out there. And man, he gets so many referrals and so many people that repeat with him on a continuous basis. We had to get him on the show. So Chris, welcome to the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Thank you for having me, Andy. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, you've built the #1 Chicagoland, livery service. Let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet. Tell everybody what you do, and then we have to get into how you built this. This is amazing.
Well, so basically, Andy, it's a black car service. We just deal with a really great clientele. I started the business. We just entered our 5th year right now. When the business, I started like a lot of other guys about 8 years ago. Originally from New York, I moved out here to get involved with my family's restaurant business. And then I wanted a way out of the business, because when you're working with old school Greek guys, I've had better conversations with rocks. So I tried to find a way out of it. So like a lot of other people, I started doing Uber as a side gig about 8 years ago. And anyway, so that kind of helped me, and I started with like the lower level Ubers. So nothing fancy, nothing like that. One of my buddies from New York that was doing it, he was kind of pushing it on me. He was like, you know what, Chris? He's like, I'm sick and tired of hearing you complain about the restaurant business. He goes to me, you should give Uber a shot. And he was telling me for a while. And, finally I gave it a shot. And, so this was about 8 years ago. So basically I started, I would always close up shop at my family's restaurant. I'd always be there from, afternoon to nighttime, close it up every day. And, but mornings I used to go downtown, Uber, and just, get my foot in the door a little bit. And ultimately that Uber, about 2 years in, I was a little burnt out because I was doing both. I was doing both the restaurant business. I was doing both Uber. So I was able to use Uber as a way to get away from the restaurant business. But then I wanted to use, get my chauffeur license and start doing, the better Uber, which is like, the Uber black car. So I got involved with that. And, slowly I started, I got out of the regular Uber, started doing the more higher end, the more executives, the better clientele. And then I said to myself, you know what, I really like this. I like what's going on over here. I love this business. I love talking with people. I love driving. I love, the freedom, that came with this business. And so now I got to the point where I said to myself, how do I break out of Uber? And the one thing that I started seeing with Uber that was really changing was you slowly started seeing the black car Uber deteriorate. So I basically started seeing like, I'll never forget, there was this one morning, I must have been downtown, typical consultants, Monday through Thursday travel. And I was down there one morning, probably 4:30 in the morning, picking up somebody. And in front of me was another guy, another Uber black car. And I'm sitting there, I'm waiting for my client. He's waiting for his. And, as I'm sitting there waiting, his guy comes out first. And the guy, you see him, he comes down, he's dressed really nice, executive with his little Toomey bag. And, and I see the driver jump out with dirty jeans and a cowboy hat. And I'm like, oh man, and I started noticing it more and more, like Uber just the basic, like the taxi drivers that faded in and, they got rid of their medallions and they just started doing Uber to avoid those costs. And, they just said, why the hell am I going to have a medallion payment when I could just jump in a Toyota Prius and just Uber it, and those guys, a couple of years down the road, their friends start telling them, hey, why are you doing the cheap stuff? Just, get a black car and start doing that. So the black car was there, but the driver wasn't, so that's where I was just like, you know what? I think that's what I'm going to do. And most importantly was getting the right name for the business. Once I seen the name was available, that was it. I was like, I got the logo set up and that's it. I mean, after that, everything basically started with the logo. Everything started with a logo and the envisionment and, just started building it from there.
Yeah, I love it. I love it so much. We brought you on the show today, Chris, because this is a great entrepreneurial story. I mean, you came from New York, you came to Chi-Town, you came to Chicago. Right. Of course, you started working in the family restaurant. You and I spoke pre-interview about Greek food. It's one of my favorite foods. I love it.
Right.
And, nothing's better than some good Greek food. But then you said to yourself, there's something else I want to do. So in the evenings after, working really hard at the restaurant, you started with Uber and you started driving and then you built up all these great reviews. And you said to yourself, you know what, let me get into the black car. And then you got into the black car, but you saw something in the black car because the black cars were black cars, but the drivers were not sort of black car drivers. They were wearing, dirty jeans with holes in them and they had a baseball cap. And that's how you came up with this idea for Second City Livery. It's a great entrepreneurial story. Let's talk about it a little bit. I mean, your reviews are outstanding. Anybody watching the show, I mean, if you have this number of 5-star reviews, you're doing something right. What is it about your business? What is it about Second City Livery that resonates for the people using the cars?
I mean, it comes down, I tell everybody, I tell the drivers as well. It's like, the driver makes the car. It's not the other way around. I mean, I've had guys in the past that would get the brand new Escalade, but I would, sidestep some of my colleagues and go with the guy that might have had the Yukon because he was just a hell of a driver. He was very personable. He kept the car very clean, kept little amenities in there, just little things, it's, and in this business, you also got to know when, you have people on business calls, you have to know when to keep your mouth shut. Some guys don't shut up and it's always a judgment call. Me, I want to say, not to toot my own horn, but I get 98% of the people talking, we always have good conversations, but it's just about being professional more than anything and keeping the clean cars and good hygiene, as well. That plays a big role too.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. And of course, you do training. So let's talk about that. How do you train the drivers? How do you make sure they're professional and remain professional?
It's a judgment call. I mean, everything is done by eye, for me. I mean, I just I have a good eye for that stuff. I just know who's good. I know who's not. I'll always give them the heads up, like, make sure, just a little pep talk. I mean, nothing crazy, just to make sure that they know to be professional and make sure the car's clean, make sure they have waters, make sure, little things, phone chargers. That's it. I mean, that's, I just keep it simple.
Yeah, I like it. Of course, I could see as you grow and should you decide to go into some other cities with these amazing reviews and this amazing commitment that you have to your clients, that you'll have a book and you'll have some video training and, you'll be doing Zoom calls with your drivers to make sure they stay up and, in line with what you're trying to provide and the type of service you're trying to give to your clients. Let's talk about your clients. Mm-hmm. Now, I know you have some celebrities and some people that come into town that you can't really talk about, but Correct. Is it different when you're driving a celebrity or a sports star versus, someone that's a business person, or does everybody get the same kind of treatment?
Everybody gets the same kind of treatment for me. Yeah, that's everybody gets the same type of treatment, So, one of the funny things is, like, when I was growing up as a kid in New York, my parents were in the nightlife business. So my mother used to be a Greek singer. My old man used to have a Greek nightclub here in Chicago in the 70s. He managed a couple of Greek nightclubs in New York in the 80s. So growing up as a kid, I would run into, we'd always have the most famous Greek singers from Greece come through our apartment in New York. So I would never get really like starstruck, So it's like, it was just, if you would see these people in Greece, you'd run after them for an autograph. But I was used to just seeing them having drinks with my old man and my, my mom. And so now when I get the celebrities, it's not, I don't get starstruck. I mean, it's nice to have them in the car. It's not like, if that guy makes $10 million a year, should he pay more for the Big Mac? I don't look at it that way. I feel like it's everybody's equal there. And I just love having these people and building relationships, I mean, that's it. And, and sometimes, because I go out there and drive, I don't drive as much as I used to. Now I just try to manage a lot more, but I still get out there. And, sometimes you run out there, you might have that one trip in the day where you can make, let's just say $1,000. But you have that one trip of that one person, it might be $100 trip, but you haven't seen this person in a year. A lot of times I'll go and see that person. I'll give the other one out to one of my colleagues just because I know I'm not going to see that person again for another year. I like that person. So it's not really all about just money. It's really about relationships. And that's the thing a lot of guys don't get.
I love it. I mean, for the entrepreneurs watching the show, rewind what Chris just said. I mean, it's all about the client, and that's how you build a great company. Now, when we think about it, when we think about the drivers, when they come to you and you interview them to join, your team at Second City Livery, what are you looking for? I mean, are you looking for professionalism, background? How do you know someone's going to be a great driver to keep your 5-star reviews as high as they possibly can be?
No, that's very simple. I got to get out on the field and interview these guys face to face. I mean, I keep it simple. I don't, it's just, that's the way to do it. Or it has to be word of mouth through, guys from my inner circle, guys like me that we started together about 8 years ago, all on the low level. Because I have good friends that now, I have one of my buddies, he really deals with the nightlife here in Chicago. He's pretty much locked it down, and we've all evolved in different ways. And, if that friend of mine says, hey, Chris, I got a good driver, you can trust him, he's perfect. I'm like, all right, have him give me a call, and that's it. It's got to be like that. It's the best way, the only way, really.
Yeah, I love it. You have to be very street smart in this type of business because you're on the street. So it's really awesome.
That's right.
Let's talk about it a little bit, Chris, because someone wants to bring in one of your drivers. They need to be shown around, Chicago. They need to go outside Chicago. Maybe they're going to a sporting event or to dinner or, nightclub. How do they reach out? I mean, is it all done through the web? Do you give people your cell phone? How do people sort of say, hey, Chris, we need you, we want you, and, we want your car?
Well, typically it's online. Most people book their reservations online. I want to say 90% of them book online. They might request quotes online, and then, you'll email them a quote or give them a call or they'll call in. If they call in, it's, we just contact them right back and, just feel them out, see what it is they want, and, just try to accommodate them.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. And let's talk about safety a little bit, because there are some nightmare stories, even recently this morning, waking up with some challenges that some of the car ride services have had with some individuals that are not the best citizens, to say it lightly. How do you make sure that, you're providing the top-notch people, providing the top-notch service to your clients?
Well, that's a great question, because there's been a lot of, as a matter of fact, even that buddy of mine that I was just telling you about, they did try to carjack him over the summertime. There's been a lot of carjackings here going on in Chicago, and you gotta really be careful with Uber right now, because just recently I had a friend of mine tell me that a friend of his, I never met this guy, but he was doing Uber about 2 weeks ago, and had a guy, he got his ping, he rolled up to the location, and as soon as the two guys jumped in the car, they drove about 2 blocks, put a gun to his head. They said, give me your money, give me your wallet, and they robbed the guy. Luckily he's still alive, but that's where Uber is very dangerous right now. A lot of the crime is a little, it's a little loose right now in some of these bigger cities, and it's a little dangerous. But the way we handle it is we're just not cruising around and picking up random people. Uber used to be great, but the thing is right now, think about it. All you got to do, Andy, is lose your phone somewhere. Some guy picks it up and taps the Uber app, And the driver thinks he's picking up Andy, but he's not, and that's where it gets tricky. So all of our stuff is really prearranged. If we're suspicious of anything, we start requesting a lot of information, if they, because anybody could book online. So sometimes there's suspicious things that we notice that I don't want to discuss. But when I see that, or when we see that, we just, we start really asking for a lot of information, because, you don't want to roll up somewhere and put your driver, put anybody in danger, of something like that.
Yeah, I love it so much. And of course, you can tell about the success rate of a company by looking at their past success rate. And when you read the reviews, it's outstanding. And one thing that's remarkable for the people watching this show that you really have to understand here is that this is not just individuals. I mean, we're talking about some of Chicago's biggest companies use Chris and his entire team to move them around, whether it's a big corporate need or a small, corporate need. Let's talk about that a little bit. Once a company starts using you, how do they reserve on the fly? Is it all done online, or do they get the private cell phone numbers of your drivers? How does that work?
They get the private cell phone numbers, typically with the companies. But before we get to that, 2020 was a rough year. I started the company back in 2017. And, the first year was obviously, it was just a lot of expenses, just trying to get the ball rolling. And 2018, we had a nice little pop. 2019 was a great year. I mean, the growth has just been great, and 2020 comes in and slices us in half, right in half. So, and that's, it starts with the corporate travel. Like pre-COVID, majority of my business, I want to say 95% of my business was business travelers pre-COVID. Then COVID hit, sliced us in half. All those people, all these big corporations, they stopped traveling, and it turned into a chain reaction. It started with the airlines. Those airlines basically died down. They stopped bringing these people to our city, or whichever city in the US, which affected me, the guy that picks these people up from the airports. And which affected the hotels where I dropped them off downtown, which affected the nice high-end restaurants which they eat at when they're in town. So it was a complete chain reaction 2020. And the name of the game was, in my opinion, adapt quickly, because the summer of 2020, we got a little pop in business, but all of a sudden I started dealing with weddings. I started dealing with, things that I wasn't really used to. It was more business travel, but at that moment, you got to go with what you have to go with in order to keep everything floating. So, it was a lot of leisure travel, a lot of weddings, in 2020. But I will tell you this, 21 blew out 2019. I mean, it has been the best year so far. Knock on wood, thank God. 21 was a really, really good year. And the funny thing is, it was, how do I say it? It was, like I said, it was 95% business travel prior to COVID. This was probably 95% everything else and 5% business travel. So it was, we blew out 2019 numbers with no business travel. So right now, even if we get 50% of it back, because I don't think the business travel is ever going to go back to what it was because of Zoom, and companies are realizing they could save money, and I get it. But with a lot of these big guys that I talk to, they tell me all the time, they're like, Chris, there's no way that you're going to do a multi-million-dollar deal, through Zoom. You got to go, you got to shake hands, you got to go for a drink, and I get it. So it will come back, and I'm starting to see little signs of it right now. Actually, I've been seeing, some signs of the business travel coming back. So I really, I'm getting prepared, hopefully the summer, if we get a little business travel back, it's going to be a lot busier than 21. But now to get back to your question, though, because I would always deal with like the executive, secretaries and, CEOs, and those ladies, those men, they all have my cell phone number. They call me direct, and, so I'm not going to put them through the hassle. They have enough on their plate that they got to deal with. I'd rather they just call me direct, and I assist them and try to make their life a little easier than them trying to book online and do it that way.
I love it. And for any entrepreneur, younger entrepreneur, older entrepreneur, seasoned entrepreneur running a business, Google Chris's business and look at the reviews. I mean, he's absolutely doing an amazing job on Google, Facebook, Yelp. One review came across my desk. My team said to me, "Hey, Jake, listen, you have to ask him about this when he's on the show." Some reviewer on Yelp said that you helped his 90-year-old mom get downtown for a wedding and come back safely. And I think that's the key there. And the reviewer just went on and on about the way in which you handled his 90-year-old mother. And I love that so much because, I've got some elderly mom and mother-in-law and father-in-law, and, nothing's more important at that age than safety. And the Yelp review talked about how you got them to the event and that got them home safely. I would imagine for people that use you, knowing that they're going to have their senior parents handled with kid gloves is really incredible. And that was really great. So when you think about, working with seniors, I bet because of, your background and experience, that has a very unique place in your heart as well. Right, Chris?
It sure does. Yeah. Because, especially when I was in the restaurant business, you deal with a lot of the seniors too. So, yeah, I always had but from a kid, I was always like that. I always like to talk with the older people, and that's where the knowledge is. I mean, if you want to learn, you got to talk to those guys right there, the older folks, So I always, there's always a soft spot in my heart for them as well. You're right, 1,000%.
Yeah, I love it. And of course, another review, you met them at baggage claim and the Escalade drives up and there's snacks for their little girl ready to go. I mean, you really take this service to a whole nother level. So I wanted to take this interview into entrepreneurship because there's so much to learn. And this is why we brought you on the show. When we think about entrepreneurship, Chris, and we think about potholes and we think about challenges and tough times, we have a lot of younger entrepreneurs watching the show. Sometimes they're hitting a pothole, or right now, maybe they're hitting a wall they can't get through. Maybe you could share some of your entrepreneurial experience to the other people watching the show about what it takes to get through a tough time and keep on pushing.
Yeah, well, for one, be hard-headed. That's for damn sure, So, but I'll tell you this: just listen. Just listen to people. Talk with people. Keep your ears open. Don't talk too much. Sometimes it's because one thing with me is I know from, for example, friends' mistakes, my father's mistakes with things, certain, and I'm not that person. If I know your mistake, I'm not gonna go hit that same pothole. I know people where I tell them, guys, the pothole's right there. Don't do it. They do it anyway, and it's like, and that just becomes a waste of time. It's, I feel like just keeping your ears open. And I mean, that's it. I mean, we're all going to hit the potholes, but hit your own. If I told you I just hit a pothole, why are you going to hit the same one I just hit? I just don't understand that. Just sidestep it. Go hit your own, learn your own things. I just taught you something. This guy just taught me something, that part I just can't get because it becomes a waste of time, and then later on you tell them I told you so, and that could turn into an argument, but that's a whole different story. But yeah.
I love it so much. Of course, behind you on the wall, you've got a Banksy, and Banksy does street art, of course. That's and that resonates for me, of course, Chris, because, you know the street and being on the street and rolling on the street. It's fantastic. This is a great story. We're going to watch what you're doing, of course, at Second City Livery. I'm going to come to Chicago. I can't wait to get picked up. And of course, we're going to go to the family restaurant. We're going to break a few plates and have some lamb chops and some saganaki, I hope. And
I love
Chris, this has been a great interview. And thank you so much for sharing your story on the .com magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight
Thank you
Series.
for having me. Thank you for having me, Andy. Yeah, I hope I don't find out you came here and you took a Toyota Prius with the complimentary cat hairs. You better call me.